said anything about running into an energy cloud, and that's just a wild guess what we hit.
This is Mothermantiss, and today I'd like to talk to you about what I'd like to see in the next Mass Effect. So, right off the bat, I think they need to accomplish 3 things with whatever plotline they come up with. 3 things that are really important, in my opinion. Number 1, I think they immediately need to tie the Mass Effect world to the Andromeda world. Not a sequel, but I think that any plot theory needs to incorporate the events of Andromeda and the Andromeda world with the Mass Effect world, because let's face it, that game came out, and no matter how you feel about the Andromeda world, it's part of the Mass Effect overarching world, and they need to be tied together story-wise. Number 2, the threat has to be big enough. Shep just defeated a potentially galaxy-ending threat. And I don't think a game that's all about rebuilding the galaxy after the Reapers is going to be compelling enough. Mass Effect is a hero game. We need a hero, and in order to be a hero, you need an appropriately large threat. Number 3, if they bring Shepard back, and I think that's a pretty big if, because honestly, I think Shepard's story arc is pretty complete at this point. But if, of course, on the other hand, is a Mass Effect without Shep like a Witcher without Geralt? But if they decide to bring Shepard back, then they need to provide a reason, a story reason, why Shepard's story wasn't actually done yet. It can't be a new threat. It has to be a continuation. Some factor comes into being that we didn't know about prior to the Reapers being taken care of that continues Shep's story arc, because the arc has to be one story arc. It can't be a new threat, because I think over time, if you have Shep defeating massive threat after massive threat, it's just going to diminish the character. It's going to turn it into somewhat of a cartoon character. And I think that would be doing a disservice to Shepard. So I think the threat has to be a continuation or some factor of the threat. You know, the Reapers were the tip of an iceberg, and now we're seeing the iceberg. That's what I think the story has to be. And I think that there's one premise that's been floating around the internet for a while and has been alluded to in the trilogy itself, that can accomplish those 3 goals. And that's the dark energy theory. It's really more of a premise at this point, but I think if they work with the dark energy theory, they could really have something. It's a fun premise, not the least because dark energy is a real thing in our universe. And before I say this next bit, let me preface this by saying, I'm just a middle-aged housewife. I am not a physicist, and we're talking about science fiction here, so excuse me if my facts aren't perfect. But I love the idea of playing with a premise that deals with real forces that are at play in our real universe. Dark energy makes up something like 65% of space, and it works in direct opposition as a repelling force to a force called dark matter that pulls our solar system together. And it's a real fact that our solar system is expanding at an ever-increasing rate that scientists theorize will one day result in like a big, they call it a big rip. It's a big destruction of our universe where the force of dark energy, which is pulling us apart, will one day, it will literally tear our galaxy apart. Now remember, dark energy, a force we barely comprehend and certainly have no real control over, is used throughout the Mass Effect world in technology, manufacturing, faster than light travel. Biotics have ESO nodes embedded into their bodies so that they can create miniature Mass Effect fields. Here's what I think they could do in Mass Effect 4. The Mass Effect reveal materials showed a new Mass Effect relay. And I think it could turn out that that relay connects us to Andromeda, which would also explain both Liara and an Angara, for instance, being in the same scene that they showed us. So the scourge around the planets in Andromeda could turn out to be some form of dark energy that's not 100% natural, something that's been manipulated by some overarching and malignant force. So what if, after the Reapers have been destroyed, because I think the destroy ending is going to be the canon ending, in a big twist, we find out that the Reapers were actually working towards a larger goal that was beyond our comprehension at the time and beyond our ability to perceive. I mean, we like to think that we're important and memorable in the galaxy, but to some universe entity out there, we're just an ant colony that's getting out of hand. I mean, if you had an ant colony affecting the safety of your deck, would you think twice about eradicating that ant colony? You would not. However, to that ant colony, you are a massive and destructive, incomprehensible force, a universe-destroying force. So what if the proliferation of dark energy uses, species after species achieving a certain level of technology and advancement, and harnessing this energy is actually speeding this process of our solar system expanding towards destruction? But this would also explain why the Star Child encourages Shep to choose synthesis or control, because that interconnectedness voluntarily entered into would save a lot of time and effort in controlling the herd, so to speak. So now, in this new game, we're faced with the awful knowledge that there are far bigger forces at play here, forces that we didn't know about and didn't understand when we destroyed the Reapers. And now we're forced to confront the idea that the Reapers, although a terrible and malignant force to us, were merely getting rid of ant colonies in an effort to eradicate this much, much bigger problem. This also would provide a reason for Shep to survive, because then the hero's journey is not finished yet. Now, obviously, this needs lots of details worked out. We're just talking about a premise here, and it would probably require a little bit of retconning with the previous games, but what game doesn't retcon their previous work sometimes? And it does incorporate some of the storylines they alluded to in Mass Effect 1 and in particular 2, but then just sort of dropped. And I love the idea of a twist that reveals the Reapers to be more than we thought they were, that ties the Andromeda world to the Milky Way world in Mass Effect, that shows us that we, as a species, are infinitely smaller and less consequential than we thought we were. And now we're faced with a problem of such magnitude that many species, many worlds, many alien world groups need to come together to solve if our universe is to survive. Oh, and I'd like the option to play as an alien species. Okay, you tell me whether you think the dark energy theory has legs and could maybe be the underpinning for the new Mass Effect. And if you don't think that's a viable premise, tell me what you think is a good premise in the comments below. But most importantly, enjoy your day. Bye.